That was the worst news I've ever heard in my life. He casually told me and walked away. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for coming back. Today's video is going to be very emotional for me. I have been putting this video off for a very long time, and I've just finally decided to film it. So if you would like to hear everything about my very complicated pregnancy journey, then please stay tuned for the video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new to my channel, I'd like to say welcome. My name is Mercy. I am a BSN RN, and on this channel I talk about nursing, lifestyle, beauty. I do a little bit of vlogging, and I just do a little bit of everything. So if you would like to join my family, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. Also hit the bell notification button so you never miss another video from me again. Like I said, today's video is going to be a little bit emotional, but I did hint at making this video before, and I thought you guys forgot about it, but a few of you have started to ask me about the video. So you know what? I just decided to do it, get it over with, and just be free of it. So that is what this video is going to be about. So a few months back, when I decided to go back to work as a new mom, I told you guys that my pregnancy was very complicated. Not a lot of people know this, but my very close friends and family are all aware of my complicated pregnancy. So first of all, let me just say that if my voice sounds weird, that's because I'm just getting off of a cold. I had it for about a week or two. I don't know. It was forever. Secondly, I want to say maybe grab some coffee or grab a snack or grab something, because this is going to be a long one. But I hope you guys can bear with me, because I want to share my story, because I am a strong believer that when other people hear other people's story, it can either encourage them, inspire them, or teach them a lesson. So that is why I strongly believe in sharing stories. To be honest, I've tried to shoot this video a lot of times. Over 2 months ago, I said that I was going to shoot this video. I thought I was ready then, but I lied, because I was not ready. I just wasn't ready to talk about all the stuff that happened. I just got a little too emotional, so I decided to, just stop and move on to the next video. With that being said, let's go all the way back to the beginning. About July of last year, was it June, July? About July of last year, I started to feel really sick. I've always told you guys that ever since I became a nurse, I've never had one job. I always worked 1, 2, sometimes even 2.5, 3, whatever you want to call it. I was always working. If I'm not working as a nurse, I'm working as a beautician, doing somebody's hair, doing somebody's makeup. I just always kept myself busy. At the time, I didn't have any kids, so I had a lot of free time, I guess. But at a certain point, I started to get really weak and really sick. I would lay down and say, okay, I feel really tired. Let me take a 5-minute nap. And then I would wake up like 2 hours later. And I'm like, whoa, this is not me at all. And I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And then it started to progress. It started to get worse and worse. And it came to a point where I started to feel some lumps in my stomach. First of all, when I get sick, I try to diagnose myself. And if I can treat it without going to the hospital, I try to do that. I started to feel my belly, feel and see if there's anything in there. And I started to feel some lumps in my stomach. And that completely freaked me out. I literally thought I had cancer. I got so scared I started to cry, and I was like, I'm too young. I've done everything perfectly, because a lot of you guys who follow me on Instagram or Facebook know that within that time I was on my fitness journey. I was eating really healthy. I used to work out 5 to 6 times a week. I felt better than I've ever felt in my entire life. So for this to suddenly start happening to me, I just didn't know what to expect. So I didn't tell anybody. I kept it to myself, because I wanted to figure out what was going on, because I didn't want to scare anybody. And then it came to a point where Nady started to notice that I was getting sick, because he knew that I was working a lot, but then I started to call off a lot. I just started to turn down work. And he knew that wasn't me. And then so I finally told him I was sick, but I didn't tell him what was going on. Then he got tired of me complaining and just crying and looking like I'm in so much pain. So he told me, he said, you have to go to the hospital, at least go to the ER. So I was like, I don't want to go, because in my head, your mind goes to the worst place ever. I just didn't know what was going on with me. And he said, when I get off work, we're going. As much as I was scared and freaking out, I didn't want to scare him or any member of my family. So I waited until it was time for him to go to work, and then I took myself to the ER. Especially this day, I was in so much pain and I was so weak, so weak, and I just couldn't figure out what was going on. So I take myself to the ER. I told the doctor all my symptoms, and you know, when you go to a hospital, they have to do all the tests, including a urine test, and then they also sent me to ultrasound. So I went to ultrasound. I was there for about 30 minutes. They were just checking and checking and checking. So I was in there for 30 minutes, freaking out, and I don't know what's going on. And I could see that she was like looking at things in there. There were things in there because although I'm not an ultrasound tech, I'm a nurse, and I kind of know when there's something in there, and I could see the monitor. So 30 minutes later, they sent me back down, and then the doctor came and saw me. So this is the explanation that really got to me. He goes, "You were right. You do have lumps in your stomach." And then like the waterworks, just tears, just tears. At this point, I was just ready to hear it. And he goes, "You have fibroids. You have 6 fibroids." I went through my whole life not ever having one symptom of fibroids. Nobody in my family, as far as I know, has any kind of fibroids. First of all, I was relieved that it wasn't cancer. But secondly, I'm like, how did I get fibroids? Before I became educated about fibroids, from what I used to hear, women who have fibroids do not have kids. They cannot conceive. Number 2, a lot of women who have fibroids have very bad menstrual cycles, and it's heavy and it's painful and the cramps. But I've never had any of those things happen to me. So how do I even have fibroids? So then I asked him, I said, so how do I have fibroids and why is it just now coming on? And he goes, well, many things can cause fibroids. He says 1 out of every 2 African American women has fibroids. And then he goes, sometimes it's genetics, sometimes it comes on because you're pregnant. So I was like, okay. I said, can it be treated? He said, yes, you can take it out. Finally, I feel a little relief. If it's just fibroids, I can deal with it. The doctor walks out. He goes, do you have any other questions? I said, no, I don't have any other questions. And then the PCA comes in and she goes, congratulations. And I'm like, congratulations on what? And she was like, oh, is this your first one? I'm like, my first what? My first fibroids? Yeah, it's my first one. I never knew I had it. And she goes, what about the baby? I was like, what baby? She's like, so you don't know you're pregnant? I was like, wait, I'm pregnant? Oh my God. This whole thing was a mess. So the doctor neglected to tell me that the reason my fibroids came on or started to grow to the point where I could feel it was because I was pregnant. And pregnancy sometimes exacerbate the growth of fibroids. He didn't tell me that. He only told me the causes of fibroids. He mentioned pregnancy, but he didn't tell me I was pregnant. The PCA was the one who told me I was pregnant. And then I go back to crying because, first of all, my goal has always been to go to school, get my master's, buy a house, get married, and then have a baby. Okay, so I've been working really hard to get to those points in my life. So I go back to being sad, I'm crying, I'm overwhelmed. A lot of you guys may know that for females, especially if you're not planning to get pregnant, sometimes pregnancy is not always a happy news for everyone, especially at the beginning. So then I'm like, oh my God, I'm pregnant, I wasn't ready, I wasn't planning this. I felt so overwhelmed, and I come home and I didn't tell anybody. Once again, I did tell my family the reason I've been sick was because I have fibroids. And I said it's treatable, I can get it removed and this and that. But I didn't say anything about being pregnant. And then I called and set up an appointment with an OB doctor because at this point I need to start seeing a doctor regularly. So then I set up an appointment and I go there and I tell them that I have 6 fibroids. And then she tells me that the signs and symptoms of fibroids can be very serious depending on who you're dealing with. So sometimes it causes miscarriages, sometimes it causes very complicated pregnancy, and then sometimes some women can't even have babies. But she didn't know what my symptoms would be, and she said that because you have 6, she didn't know if the pregnancy would be viable. And I'm like, should I tell anyone? And I tell myself, no, I shouldn't tell anyone, because if I'm gonna lose the pregnancy anyways, why get everyone else excited when I know I'm gonna lose it? So I was like, I'm just gonna wait till 12 weeks. I waited till the 12 weeks were over. Once they were over, I talked to my doctor and she said, this is a lot to keep to yourself, so maybe you should tell your family, and if anything happens, at least they'll know and they'll be able to support you a little bit better than you just telling them everything all at once. So I was like, okay. So then I tell my family, I tell Nandy, and everyone's happy. So everything was fine. Everyone was excited. So that made me excited. So then I had my gender reveal. I really, really wanted a girl. And when I had my gender reveal, I found out I was having a girl. I got even more excited. I started to buy things. I started to be happy. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a fighting chance. Even if I end up losing it, I'll give it a fighting chance. But I did not know the turn my life was about to take. I had my gender reveal at 16 weeks. At 17 weeks, literally a week later, after I had told everybody I was pregnant, I had a get together for my gender reveal. I had some gifts from my gender reveal. I started to set up the baby's room. Literally a week later, I started to feel severe pain. When I say the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. So then we rushed to the hospital. They hooked me up to all kinds of monitor. They monitored me and they said I was having contraction, almost kind of like preterm labor. And immediately I started thinking in my head, I said, they said this was going to happen. I just wasn't ready. I have finally accepted the fact that I was pregnant, number one. Finally accepted the fact that this might actually happen, and now this. So they hooked me up. They hooked me up to everything and they told me these are normal for someone who has fibroids. The next morning, Nandy had to go to work. He asked me if I was okay and I told him yes, but I really wasn't okay. But the contraction had stopped at that point. The pain was still there, but the contraction had stopped. So then I said I was okay. So he said, are you sure? I said yes. So he had to go to work. I told myself, maybe if I try to sleep the whole day, I'll sleep through the pain. So I'm laying in bed and I just felt this big gush of fluid. It was almost like when you pee yourself. So when that happened, I jumped up. And when I jumped up, the first thing I saw was blood. It was blood everywhere. And I immediately started to cry. I didn't know what to think. I grabbed my phone. I started to cry. I couldn't even walk because I was in so much pain. I was crawling on the floor. I went to the bathroom. I sat on the toilet and there was blood everywhere. I started to feel clots. And I just knew I had a miscarriage. I just knew I had a miscarriage. So then when that happened, I grabbed my phone. I called 911 and I was on the phone with the operator and I said, my name is Mercy. This is my address. I think I just had a miscarriage. I need some help. And so the 911 operator, I guess this is their way of keeping you on the phone to make sure you're not panicking or doing anything. She was asking me the most random questions. How many months are you? I don't even remember. But I just thought I would call 911, tell them my situation, and they would send somebody over. But she kept me on the phone and she kept talking to me and asking me the weirdest questions. And then she asked me if someone else was home. I said no, and she said, is your door open? Is your front door open? I said no, and she said, you have to go and open the door. So then I had to crawl from the bathroom all the way to my front door, open the door, and wait for 911 to get here. So about 10 minutes later, 911 comes. The whole house looks like a crime scene. I had already called Nandy, so him and the medics got here exactly the same time. So he had to drive behind the ambulance. So they took me to the closest hospital. Honest to God, this was the first time in my entire life that I had gotten an IV. I had been healthy all my life. I don't even remember going to the emergency room for any reason other than being there as a staff nurse. Anyway, so they put an IV in me. One of the medic, who was a lady, she was asking me, when is your due date? And I was like, I don't have a due date. I just had a miscarriage. And she said, oh, well, we don't know that yet. There's hope. And I was like, there's no hope. I saw what I saw. I know what I saw. And I was just bawling and crying. crying and in so much pain. And so they took me to the closest hospital. As soon as I got there, Nanny got there as well. So they let him park his car valet and he followed us inside. And this is so embarrassing because the hospital that they took me to was the hospital I was working at that time. So a lot of my colleagues saw me in the hall when they were like rushing me to the triage. So we get to the triage. The nurse who was in the triage, she tried to listen to heart tones, the baby heart tones. She couldn't hear anything. And so they had to get the high-risk pregnancy doctor. At this point, Nandy was sitting right there. We're holding hands. We're both crying. This is the first time I had ever seen him cry. I could see tears coming down from his eyes, and he was trying to be strong and hide it from me. And so he was holding my hands, and they called the high-risk doctor. She came in, so she said that she was going to do an internal ultrasound. And I'm telling you, immediately when they put the ultrasound machine on my stomach and turned on the monitor, the baby literally waved as if to say, "Hi mom, I'm still here." There was not one dry eye in that room. Everybody started to cry. Everybody started to cry and everybody was like, "It's a miracle, the baby is here." And I just couldn't believe it because I was like, how is that even possible? I bled so much. My whole house looked like a crime scene. Like, how is that even possible? So then they said that they would have to keep me for a few days. And by a few days, I mean 10 days. I was admitted in the hospital for 10 days. So they went on to do further testing and they found out that one of my fibroids had degenerated. That's what caused the bleeding and the cramps and all of that. And that's what was causing the contraction. It wasn't a miscarriage, it was a fibroid degeneration, which I knew nothing about what that meant. So a fibroid degeneration just means that one of your fibroids loses blood supply, so they shrink and go away, I guess. This doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens to some people. So in my case, as the baby got bigger, the biggest fibroid at that time was being pushed against my uterine wall, I guess, and it didn't have a lot of room to grow, so it died off. So not only did my fibroids degenerate, which caused so much pain and bleeding and all of that, I also had placenta previa. So the doctor who was supposed to see me finally came in the next day and told me that even though they saw the baby on the monitor, even though everything seems to be well, this pregnancy is not viable because you have placenta previa, and placenta previa can lead to abruptio placenta, which basically means a miscarriage. He said, "I just want to be honest with you. I don't want to get your hopes up. I don't want you to get your hopes up. I just want to be honest with you, but we're going to keep you for 10 days to make sure that if it does happen, at least you'll be in good hands." That was the worst news I've ever heard in my life. He casually told me and walked away. So when I came in, they did the ultrasound that I just told you guys about. They gave me some pictures. At that time, you could barely see the baby on the picture. So what I did was I cut out 2 pictures. I would always put the leg of my hospital bed up, and I taped the 2 pictures of the baby on my hospital bed. And every single day and night, I used to pray on that picture. I told myself, I believe in God, I believe in the power of God, and I believe in miracles. And I know that God is not going to bring me this far and have me lose my baby. I will have this baby. I used to pray every single day for me to have this baby. When I was at that hospital, they diagnosed me with so many things, and they would always go back to telling me that I would not have the baby. And every time they would say that, I would just pray. As they're saying it, I'm praying. When they say it in my head, I'm like, I rebuke you, I refuse it. I will have my baby and I will meet her. So Nadia's African name is T1, Teewon. T1 means surprise. I nicknamed her Surprise at the beginning because, as I said before, we weren't planning to have a baby. That name took a whole different turn for so many different reasons, and you'll get to know why. The first meaning of her name, Surprise, was because she was a surprise. When I thought I had a miscarriage, when every sign was pointing to a miscarriage, she came on that monitor and she waved. That was a surprise. Her name took another turn there. When I was in the hospital for 10 days, every single doctor and ultrasound tech basically told me that I wouldn't have the baby because, first of all, I was only 17 weeks. I had placenta previa, which was going to lead to abruptio of placenta. I had severe anemia. Everything they said that was going to happen while I was there, none of it happened. That was another surprise. Then I stayed 10 days at the hospital. The 9th day, the doctor came and said, you know what? It seems like things are looking good, but we will send you home. At 24 weeks, we are going to bring you back here, deliver the baby, and keep the baby here at 24 weeks, which means my baby was going to be in the NICU. I've seen babies and parents in those situations, and it is not pretty. I don't wish that on my worst enemies. I was about to go through this. So I went home. After my 10 days, I went home. I continued to pray. I brought my baby's ultrasound home. Every empty picture frame I had, I put her pictures everywhere. I said, you are going to be a part of this family. I will meet you and you will be my daughter. I'm not listening to anything anyone has to say. When it came to Christmas, we had a big Christmas tree and I also bought a little Christmas tree. My family usually alternate whose house we're gonna have Christmas at. We had Christmas at my house this time, and when they came, they saw the tiny little Christmas tree and they saw the big Christmas tree, and everyone was asking me, why do you have a little Christmas tree? And I jokingly said, that is for T1. I want her to have her own Christmas tree so that she can know she's special. And everyone just laughed because they didn't really know what I was thinking or what my reasoning was, but I was serious. I bought the Christmas tree, I sat it there, I decorated it separate from everybody else, and I put all her Christmas gifts there. Yes, I bought her Christmas gift. So when I hit 24 weeks, nothing happened. 5 days later, I started to experience that same pain. I was in so much pain again, I ended up going back to the hospital. When I went to the hospital, they said I was in preterm labor. They were gonna do an emergency C-section, get the baby out, because at this point, at 24 weeks, the baby was now a little bit viable. So they rushed me to the surgery room, the delivery surgery room. So then again, we both got so emotional. It was just so much for us to handle. The doctor comes in, they check me out. So then they gave me those painful steroid shots because at that point the baby's lungs were not mature enough to survive outside. So they had to give you the steroids to help the baby's lung mature. They also gave me magnesium. They gave me everything that they would give someone to speed up delivery process. So after about 5 hours of being in the hospital, another high-risk doctor, this time it was a female, she was going to do an internal ultrasound to make sure that they were going to do what they said they were going to do, you know, to do the C-section. When she checked, she said she didn't see any sign of placenta previa and she didn't see any sign of distress. And she said the only thing she could see was that one of my fibroids had yet again degenerated. That was what was causing my contraction. So then they said they were going to keep me for 6 days. And I was in the hospital for another 6 days in excruciating pain after receiving all those medications, basically preparing me to take the baby out of me. Before I go any farther, I just want to say thank God for Nandy. He was so awesome throughout this process. I'm telling you, if I'm there for 10 days, he's there for 10 days. He would literally come home, get his clothes for work, go to the hospital and keep them there. After work, he goes to the hospital. He stays there with me. Early in the morning, he would get dressed from the hospital, go to work, get off work, come back to the hospital. I told him numerous times, go home, watch TV, maybe visit your friends, hang out with your friends, hang out with families, do something. And he's like, no, we're in this together. If you're here, then I'm here. We're both gonna go through this together. So I can't even say thank you to him enough. And if you do watch this video, you already know how I feel. And I just want to put that out there and say thank you for just being who you are. So at that point, they kept me there for another 6 days. They sent me home again because They couldn't find anything. The placenta previa had resolved, which apparently it happens. It can either lead to abruptio placenta or it can resolve on its own. So lucky for me, it resolved. From there on, every single doctor appointment I went to was bad news. I used to go to my doctor's appointments, get out of the doctor's appointment, sit in my car and cry for about 30 minutes. Without going into too many details, they diagnosed me with everything, every pregnancy complication you can imagine. I was diagnosed with it. And they continued to tell me this pregnancy might not go any farther. I went on to get admitted 5 more times for a total of 7 times. It came to a point where I stopped working. I couldn't even walk. I used to literally hold things to get up and go to the bathroom because I couldn't straighten my back because I was in so much pain. I couldn't do anything anymore. All I could do was just be in my house. They put me on bed rest. The only thing I could do was be in my house, do some schoolwork, and film videos. Basically, I would have Nandy set up everything for my videos, and all I would do is sit in front of the camera and shoot my video. So when I hit 8 months, it seemed like all the symptoms went away. I was feeling good again. I was feeling healthy. I was taking pictures. We even did the baby mama dance. If you guys haven't seen that, I will link that down below. Everything was fine. And this baby that they had told me that I wouldn't, first of all, I wouldn't have, or if I did have her, she would be preterm. Now I was in my 9 months and she wouldn't come out. I started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but I was healthy. Everything was fine. I wasn't getting admitted anymore. So then my 9 months hit, she didn't come. So then I go and see my doctor. I said I'm like 3 days overdue, which if any of you guys have been pregnant and been overdue, you know exactly what that feels like. Those 3 days feel longer than the 9 months. So my doctor said, okay, we'll give you 2 weeks. If after 2 weeks, if you don't deliver on your own, we will have to induce your delivery. So I was like, okay. So I come home. This appointment was on a Thursday. Thursday goes by, Friday goes by, Saturday, Nandy has to work every last Saturday of the month. So this was March, I think March 30th. Yes, it was March 30th. He had to work that Saturday. So he goes to work that morning. Usually the baby would wake me up because she would kick, and I would be so uncomfortable to the point where I would get up. Or sometimes she'll kick until she'll kick my bladder and I have to jump up and go pee. So this time I didn't feel anything. So I'm like, okay. So I get up, I go to the bathroom, I use the bathroom, I come out, still nothing. I don't feel the baby at all. So I'm like, let me go drink some water. I go and drink really, really cold water. Nothing. These are all things that would usually wake her up. Drink some cold water, nothing. I started doing jumping jacks. I did a few jumping jacks, nothing. I took a walk outside my house, nothing. I lie down on my back because sometimes that makes them uncomfortable and they start to move, nothing. Basically everything I did for about an hour, nothing worked. So I started freaking out. I knew I was past due and I knew all the complication I had. I started freaking out. I jumped in my car. I left my phone, my wallet, my everything. All I grabbed was my keys and I jumped in the car and ran to the hospital and I started praying. I was like, God, I pray to you. You answered me. We have come this far. You can't let me down. I have to meet this baby. I don't have any other options. I've done a baby shower. I've set up the baby room. I've done everything that a mother could do to await a baby. I've done it all. Please, God, you cannot let me down. I have to meet this baby. I'm running, I'm speeding on the highway and crying. I'm like, if a cop pulls me over, all I need to do is show my belly. I'm sure he'll let me go. I just want to get to the hospital. I get to the hospital, they hooked me up and they said that, good thing you came to the hospital because the baby is not doing well. We have to get you ready for an emergency C-section. Again, I start freaking out. At this point, my whole mind goes blank. I don't know anybody's phone number offhand. So I asked the nurse if she can look up my family's phone number so I can call them. She gave me my sister's phone number and she gave me Nandy's phone number. So I called my sister about 6 times. She was at work as well, so she didn't answer her phone. But I called Nandy twice. First time he didn't answer because he didn't know what the number was. Second time he thought maybe it could be her because he knew I was due at any point. So he answered the phone and I tell him, I'm in the hospital, you have to get here. And he was asking me all these questions. Are you okay? Da, da, da. I was like, you just need to get here, because I didn't want to freak him out as well because he has to drive. So I said, I'm fine, you just need to get here. So when he got there, they assigned me to get ready for a C-section. We signed the papers and everything. The only thing holding us at that point was because it was a Saturday, they only had one doctor at that point who was doing C-sections, and she was already with another patient, and she had another 30 minutes or so before she could get to me. So they said that after that patient, I was gonna be next. So they hooked me up to IVs and this and that and blah blah blah, and we're waiting to go to C-section. And the nurse that was taking care of me at that point, she was really rude and really mean, and that's a story for another day. But for some reason she had to go to another unit because they were short and they needed someone, and that unit was really slow, so they took her away. So then I got a different nurse. So when that nurse came in, she started to look at the baby on the monitor, and she came to the room and she was like, why are you gonna do a C-section again? I said, because they said the baby's not doing well. And she said, but from what I can see, earlier the baby wasn't doing well, but from what I can see, the baby's moving, you're contracting on your own. You don't need a C-section. So if they come back in here, don't say I told you so, but tell them you don't want a C-section. So I was like, I can do that? She said, yes, you can do that. Mind you, again, I'm a nurse, but when you're a patient, you're a patient. Nursing or whatever your education is, everything goes out of the window. So I was like, I can do that? She goes, yes, you can do that. Just tell them you don't want a C-section. So the doctor comes back in about 10 minutes later, and they were like, okay, we're gonna get you ready. We're gonna clean up the room and we're gonna wheel you down. So I was like, I don't want a C-section. And the doctor goes, what? Your baby's not doing well. And then I finally told them I'm a nurse. I was like, I'm a nurse. I've been looking at the monitor myself, and I see that the baby's moving. The baby's not having any late deceleration. The heart rates are normal. Everything is fine. So I don't know why I need to have a C-section. I understand that the baby wasn't doing well before, but now she's doing well. So I don't want a C-section. So they go, well, if you have a vaginal delivery, we have to induce you. And secondly, it may take forever, and the induction process is very, very painful. I said, trust me, I've been through serious pain for 9 months. I think I can deal with this. So then they had to induce me. So that is why, if you guys have seen my labor and delivery video, I don't know if that's what I named it, but I have a video where I shared with you guys the whole pregnancy process. I'll link that down below. That is why I was in labor for 27 hours, because I was induced. I was in the hospital from Saturday morning, early in the morning, at about, I don't know, 5 or 6 a.m. I didn't get to meet my baby till about 9:30 the next morning. I didn't have a C-section. They induced me, but they didn't even have to break my water. My water broke on its own. I went through everything, and I finally met my baby. Everything they said that was gonna happen, she may have this and that and that and that, absolutely nothing happened. The minute I had my baby, all my pregnancy problems, signs and symptoms, everything literally stopped. The baby came out healthy. They even told me the baby wasn't going to be anything bigger than 5 pounds because of the fibroids, because they were taking space. She came out almost 8 pounds, very, very healthy, with a head full of hair. She was perfect in my world. When they laid that baby on my chest, at that very moment, my entire life changed. And that is the reason my daughter is so precious to me. My story and what I went through before God blessed me to meet my daughter is nothing short of a miracle. That is why my daughter means the whole world to me. I feel so blessed to have her. As for my fibroids, I still have 4 of them. They're still there. I have lost almost all my baby weight, but the fibroids are still in my stomach, and they said that they're gonna either do surgery, but there are 2 things that come with the surgery. Sometimes with surgery, the fibroids may come back, and secondly, it may affect your ability to conceive again. On the other hand, they said that I can leave it as it is, have all my kids, and then have the fibroids taken out or have a hysterectomy. But with that, there's a possibility that I could go through the same thing with future pregnancies. So now I am stuck trying to make the decisions. Do I take it out or do I leave it in? So that is the decision I'm trying to make right now. I am doing my research. I'm talking to multiple specialists to see what is the best decision for me. And once I come up with that, I will let you guys know. But that is my story. I have tried many times to make this video. I just couldn't do it. It was just too hard for me. But I'm glad I'm finally able to do it. I just know that this video is meant for someone to hear, because I didn't have to talk about this. I didn't have to share this, but I just know that this video is going to be helpful to someone out there. So thank you guys again so much for watching. I'm very sorry that this video was very long. If you stayed till the end, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you guys again so much for your love and support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button, give it a big thumbs up. And also, if you haven't hit the notification button yet, go ahead and hit it so you'll never miss another video from me again. Thank you guys again so much for your love and support, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.